Hey guys, Sarah here. Just wanted to share with you a quick tutorial on how I've done my Harry Potter page book tumbler. I used to actually use real pages from the books, but as my cup grew in popularity and no one wanted to choose other pages, I had to stop using actual real books because one, it was a very sad waste of books. Two, I have nowhere to keep these. I don't want to just throw them away. And it has cut down in cost. But I do miss actually using pages from the book because I find that they are way easier to work with than the other paper that I use. They're much thinner. They just adhere to the cup a lot better. But for me, I had to stop because I was making too many. But if you're only doing one or two of something and you do have pages that you can use, these pages work way better for this cup than what we're going to use. I eventually started to get page colored paper, and this is what I used. But you can use any kind of sand colored paper. This is just the first one that I found. And like I said, it's just page colored paper. What I had done is I had taken the pages that I wanted, or the pages that were super popular, and they are taped to this, and then I put it in my photocopier and I just copy it right onto here. So that's how I get the pages for the books now. So I like mine to be a little imperfect. So, and you're gonna cut it much bigger than what you actually want on your cup because of unless you're gonna skip the next step that we're gonna do. But I think it gives it a lot more character. Cutting away from the words. Actually a little bit too big. And you can cut them in any shapes that you want. There's no right or wrong way to make any tumbler, really. This is just the shapes that I did the first time, and now it's kind of the shapes that I always do. Next, we are actually going to burn the edges of these. So put this to the side. And I'm just gonna, it's very tedious, I'm just gonna go little by little. See, and that's why so you want to touch it and pull away. You don't want to touch the actual paper because then you're going to get this, and it doesn't really come out that easily. So be careful when you do this at home because you are lighting something on fire. It's just blowing it out very quickly. It's not really hot when you touch it, it's just a little warm. Sorry guys, this is the tedious part. Try to speed it up for you. You just go back, and if you want to reburn something to give it a little bit more of that burnt edge look, and also look back at it as a whole. I don't really like this part, so we're going to get rid of that little nub. it's gone. So not only are you burning the edges, but you're also forming the page how you want it, how this particular segment, how you want it to look on your cup, shape-wise. I have found the more of a lean you hold it on, the more you'll get this burnt look. And yes, your thumb really starts to hurt after a while. So again, we're just gonna... If I can do large segments like that at a time, I will. Sections, whatever. But I don't always recommend it because it can get away from you and start burning faster and faster, as fire tends to do. And you might wind up burning off a part that you didn't want, which is why I recommend cutting it wider than you wanted it to be. See, we're getting real close there, but we haven't burnt it off yet. Be extra careful with these littler pieces because you could see how close the fire is to my fingers. You don't want to burn yourself. I'm sure this look can also be achieved with the use of alcohol inks or paints, but this is how I do it. I'm going to pause this real quick and do these. Okay, now we are all ready to go. So I don't think I explained well. The reason that I was blowing it out and pulling on it is because you'll notice that little edge, it's kind of still hot and little embers are still burning through your paper, and it's going to turn it to gray ash and then flake off, and you don't want that. So you want to catch it right before it does that. And yes, it does mess with your hands. So let's get started. Let's get these on our cups. Just taking a little bit of alcohol to my fingers because I really don't want the dirty ash to be on my hands when we do this next step, because if you get any of the ash on the actual page itself, your cup's going to wind up just looking dirty instead of cool. Alright, we are good to go. Got our Mod Podge, got my paintbrushes, and I got my cup that's already epoxied with the color that I wanted. Usually I do a rose gold base just because that's the color that I chose at first. I really liked it. This is, it's kind of dull because it's sanded, but this is Blurple from the Glitter Guy, and on the bottom there is Maleficent. It's just a cup that I had around, so it's the cup that I'm going to use. So figure out where you want what. I kind of line it up first to make sure that my sizing is right, because if not, you don't want to wait till you have glue all over your page. So there's two ways to do this part. You can put glue directly on the back of this, but it's kind of hard to hold on to it while you're gluing it, so I've started putting glue directly on the cup, just in the general area where we wanted it. You could do it a little wider than you know that the page is, just to make sure that you at least covered everywhere that the page is going to be, because you really want this guy glued down good. And I just kind of start in the middle here and rub on it until you get to the edge. Pat the edges down. You don't want to rub over the edges since you've burnt them because they tend to flake off sometimes, depending how crispy they are. So all I did was I pressed down in the middle and I pushed outward, making sure that all parts of my cup are being glued down. And the edges, I'm merely just pressing down instead of wiping them. Sometimes you need to put a little bit more glue on your edges, and that's fine. That's why I have my smaller paintbrush. So you see where it's starting to come up, I'm just pressing down on it. Pressing them air bubbles out. I don't mind the wrinkles so much. I do try to press as many of them out as I can. Sorry. But most of them don't show up under epoxy anyway. And some of them that do actually look pretty cool. So I'm just making sure all my edges are down so nothing rolls up. You can't see, but every time I pull my hand away, I'm wiping the glue off. So my fingertips aren't that wet if I touch other parts of the cup. Alright, I'm pretty happy with how it's laid. I think that we are pretty darn secure. With real book pages, you don't get these wrinkles, but there's ways to work them out. I'm just kind of pulling on it. But like I said, most of them don't show up anyway, so I don't worry too much. Alright. Add a little bit more glue down here. Add my next piece. You can really get creative with this. You don't have to do the pages that I did and follow mine. Pick your own pages. Pick your own little ways to position them. Whatever makes you happy. The littler ones are much more easy. I'm just pressing down on it right now, making sure everything is secure. Pressing on my edges. Nope, sorry. Try to pay attention to when I go out of focus. Now I'm just gonna let this dry for a few seconds. I'm gonna let it dry just a few seconds, not really fully dry. This next part would be much easier if this side was dry, but to show you guys, I'm going to just go for it. So I do one of these. I put the cup out right in front of me like this because I want it to be pretty much on the back, and then I just flip it. So I know this is where I want to get my next one. So I size it up. The smaller this piece is, if you're going to do something this big, the easier it is to get it down. You'll see in a second how much fun it is to get the big pieces down. We are going to be just short on room. I just did them just a little too big. Just a little bit bigger than I want, so I'm going to cut it right here. There we go. That should fit much better now. There we go. Okay. We're gonna do this upside down. So here we are. Just checking, make sure it is where I want it to be. Make sure my thumb isn't filthy. So this piece is very large, so I'm just making sure I glue a very extra large section. You don't want it to be globs of glue under there, because that's going to work against you, because it's going to be super wet, and you don't want that. So as thin as you can, because it's going to adhere at the best. Otherwise it'll just be kind of like mushy and hard to work with when this paper's already not easy to work with. Alright, this one, like I said, is very tricky. So the size of this one, I'm actually starting from, instead of starting from the middle, I'm starting from one end and going all the way to the next. This is kind of where I want it. You see it's already bubbling out, so we're just going to work them out as we can. I don't care if the glue dries that we're about to fold our paper down on, because if it dries too much, I will just add more and that's fine. I'd rather work these bubbles out while I can before they get stuck in there, and then you can't do anything about it because of the size of this paper. Again, this step varies on the size that you chose for your back. If you even chose a back at all. Maybe you just wanted a piece on the front. So these bubbles that are forming, I'm just pressing down with a lot of force and giving it a chance to adhere. Actually, the drier this side is, the easier it is to lay the other side down, because you're not going to get as many bubbles because this is already dry. And you can see our glue is still there. Still got plenty of time. I'm just pressing down as hard as I can, smoothing out any bumps that we may have. See, they're forming, and I'm just pressing them out. Now they're gone. I don't know why I don't always start this way with the front, but at least you guys got to see how both ways work. So, especially the ends, you really want the ends to be down, because if epoxy gets under them, you're going to notice, kind of like how a fabric tumbler, you're going to get wet spots underneath, and I don't really want wet spots on this. So you just got to work it. And it does get easier the more you do it. You'll find little tips and tricks that work for you that maybe I don't know, or maybe that just don't work for me. Maybe what I'm doing doesn't work for you. We're all different. Everything works differently. So I'm just going around and specifically making sure my edges are all 100% down. Like I mentioned, I don't want epoxy to get under them. Now we're ready for our last piece. Well, my last piece. You can glue as many pieces on there as your heart desires. Maybe you're not even doing a Harry Potter one. Maybe you're doing something different. So I'm going to do this the same way. Kind of want to leave a little gap there so you know they're not the same page. But I made both pages a little bit bigger than usual. It's been a while since I've cut pages for this. And just making sure my edges are down, which this one is not. And working it down. Smoothing out any bubbles. This one's going to be much easier. And we really don't have any bubbles at all. All my edges seem to be down. So I'm just pressing on my edges like I did on all the other pages and making sure they are down. Now I'm going to give that a second to dry. Focus on this. So I'm just going to take Mod Podge, glue all over the whole thing. Start from the middle. I'm going to work my way out for my first layer, because you don't want, if there's any bit of your burnt edges that are loose, they're going to come right onto your page and make it look dirty. But after your first layer, they're kind of really glued down well. So just if you've done a fabric tumbler, it's the same thing. We're just going to do a layer of Mod Podge, nothing too thick, because it dries funny if you do it too thick. So I just and we're just going to give this side 1 second to dry. So I just went ahead and put it in front of the fan for a few seconds. And same thing. Start from the inside. I'm going to work my way to the outside. And making sure it's just one layer of Mod Podge and not clopping it on there, because it'll, like I said before, it's going to dry funny. So I'm just kind of wiping off the excess. You can see how quick it pretty much dries too, because this was not in front of the fan. And I was only over there for maybe like 15 seconds. So we're going to let this dry 100%. So where it's dry. Pretty much 10 minutes in front of my fan. I'm going to repeat this step at least 4 times. I don't feel like you can put too much Mod Podge on there, but I definitely think you could put too little, and that would be a problem. So I'm going to do at least 4 coats of this, and then you're just going to epoxy it, and you'll have your book paper cup. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so you know when I put out new fun videos, and I will link anything that I think you guys will need underneath this video. Thank you.